Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about Searching. A film like Searching is the kind of film you can definitely take for granted. It's a kind of very tight thriller genre film using a gimmick you've already seen before in the Unfriended movies. And it's a total thing you can disregard or watch kind of passively and go like, oh, Hollywood, I guess, knows how to do them. It was fine for what it was, sort of thing. But to really understand genre is not to just watch the high points and go, well, I totally get it because I've seen Halloween, so I know what all slasher movies are. That's not really how it works, to be honest. It's sometimes more interesting, or at least for me, to find the finest example of that genre that's almost the most typical, but does it the best way. And I think Searching takes the idea of the gimmick of watching everything on a computer screen and pushes it to levels that Unfriended couldn't imagine, frankly. These are both produced by Timur Bekmambetov, who did Wanted and all that, and Night Watch and Day Watch, but he also produced Unfriended. It's like his thing to do produce these movies at least. But Searching is able to show how, much like how the first Unfriended kind of hinted at the idea of how much of our lives are on computers, how much we record on computers, how much technology is part of our lives, how we text, use Spotify, use YouTube, use all these different things, and actually using the apps and the websites. We're no longer doing that thing where we make up knockoff versions of all these sites anymore. But what this film does so well is it is able to make a tense thriller where you're not really thinking about how it's going within the gimmick. You're thinking about like, oh yeah, I would do that on a computer. I would search that. I would highlight that name before I call that person. I would do this to find that number. I would look at this and do Google image search this way. And it's very naturalistic in what it's doing. It also does it in a very thriller way. This feels like a well-made cheeseburger. It feels like a summer beach time read. It feels like cheap beer that just needs to get the job done. Really excellent at it. I don't think it like blows your mind entirely. That might also be because like towards the end it goes off into weird tangents and stuff that I don't think really honestly works for it. But there's a huge chunk of the film when you are looking for his daughter Margot, you are like all in. You are definitely following it. And John Cho, who maybe gives one of his best performances, is really leading the charge of this film. And this is a kind of B-movie kind of genre performance that sells a movie, that makes it effective. It's certainly not the thing you'd give awards to or people would call out as much, but part of acting is selling the story, is definitely being a storyteller, and John Cho like gives you that propulsive nature. He gives you through his performance, which mostly in close-ups, it looks like on a GoPro attached to a laptop or something. He's mostly in close-up the whole movie, but he manages to get that to work so well. Like, he's not just kind of a leading man, he's like a leading man who's been a character actor, who's been a supporting actor, who knows how to do this in a very like kind of technical actor way that you're maybe not is like a showy, frankly. He like almost knows how to hit those beats like a very professional actor way. He like steps up to the bat in a way that I think if a certain actor can get a hold of a part in kind of a movie that's like this, like a cheaper kind of fun thriller, they can really grab hold of it and do a lot with it. And I think the energy of this film is John Cho. I mean, I think this proves the talent of John Cho so much in this. And I know it's interesting, like, I think it was 2 years ago or so, there was that hashtag cast John Cho, and they put his face on things, and they also did that with Constance Wu, and now they're both, like, in major movies. I think it's kind of cool. But they're both, like, great actors, so I don't know, it should have happened sooner. This also stars Debra Messing as the detective Rosemary Vick, who he just keeps calling Vic the whole time. It's not a typical Debra Messing performance. I think she's fine in this. It's sort of like not the thing I think Debra Messing's particularly great at. She's not the typical person for the role. I'm not exactly sure why she was cast in this necessarily. I think it's something like an Amy Ryan probably would have done a lot better. She does pretty well. You're fine in this, but don't do this again. You pulled this off, but it's like one of those you're like, that's enough from you. Just go back to doing your funny things with the scarves and all that. Searching, I think it is like one of those movies where you just sit back and like watch with your family and maybe talk over or something, but you probably wouldn't because you'd be more into it than you'd expect. This is a surprising thriller of a film. I am surprised by how many good reviews it really has. I think when you get to review aggregate things, they don't talk about like, well, I'm giving this an A, but it's an A for the kind of movie it is. And I don't know if it's like a film that surprises me or anything. The opening, I will say, was insanely strong, where they go through true. I like that they own a PC and then they eventually own a Mac. I think that's like a thing with all these films that have, you're watching it from a laptop, it always has to be a Mac. At the beginning, they actually own similar computers to what I have, but they had a PC, and then you see, you know, their lives evolving, particularly her life through technology, the daughter's life, I mean Margot, and you see, you know, what happened to the mom, and you see their lives, and people even compared it to the opening of Up. Not that it's that strong, but it is actually really strong. It really sets up their dynamic, it sets up their whole backstory, you understand their family really well, and it's really, really effective, and it shows it all through, like, you know, calendar updates and photos and videos and updating, you know, avatar icons and things like that. And like that Google ad where, if you remember from Super Bowl, and it's just like them Google searching like, how do you speak French, to like the end is like, how do you raise a baby or something. I don't know. I cried. Shut up. I did almost cry at this because it is like quite moving and quite, you know, you are totally in with the characters. There's a lot in this film that really depends on certain things absolutely working, that it shows like the director had a lot of confidence in his actors and his storytelling. Aneesh Chaganty, who does a really, I mean, he's like kind of like a really good B thriller director, and I think that's something we need more of, frankly, especially in the age of streaming. You'd think you'd have all this kind of stuff coming out, you'd have more good ones, but you don't. And I think he is able to really, really sell this film in certain ways, as particularly at the beginning, and particularly like just using iconography, like the fact that she didn't take out the trash, thing with the piano lessons, like all these little things that like kind of build and build, like even like his brother has pot in a dish and that comes back. Like he's very good at introducing little things in the background or something that you kind of disregard. Like nothing in this film is accidental, everything comes back. It is true, like towards the end, like it does a thing that I think the problem with mysteries is, if you ever watch, I think it's like NBC's like mystery show or whatever it is. Anyway, if you watch it, like there's some that are an hour, which are great. Then there's others that are seemingly endless. And then if you like watch the whole thing, by the end, you're like, wait, totally separate people are involved and this other guy did it or something. Or, you know, watch something else and then come back to it. You're like, what happened? This is the same show? And because investigations go through different things and other things happen with it, and people get involved and disinvolved and become important and then not important. And it's just like the naturalness of any investigation, really. And I've noticed sometimes mystery movies try to have a part where it's like, well, what if we go in this avenue? And you're like, but that doesn't go anywhere. So it's like, that doesn't work for story. Like real life and story are very different things. I don't know if you knew this. They should have maybe not gone in some of the avenues they did. And then when you get to the conclusion, it feels like a little satisfying. I did sort of guess it, but I was kind of in it, but then you're like, I don't know, I kind of would have gone darker, but whatever, you know. I do think this will go down as the best example of this gimmick. It does feel a little like what found footage would have the problem with, where they're like, you'd be like, well, why is the camera on right now? And it's the same thing. They don't entirely overdo the FaceTime thing. They do a lot of FaceTime. I find FaceTime obnoxious. I've noticed most people who review movies find FaceTime obnoxious. Every review I read was basically like, who FaceTimes that much? I hate FaceTime. I hate FaceTime too. I kind of like, with these kind of gimmicks, I kind of go, you know, whatever, you have to get it to work. But they didn't. There were a lot of just voice calls and things like that. If they are doing a FaceTime thing, particularly like with her sort of friend who comes back in the YouTube video, I think that's like a joke they do in the trailer. That's like sort of important. It wouldn't work as well, frankly, and they have to find a way to get that to work. So like if he's FaceTiming with someone, there's a reason he's FaceTiming with someone, and if he's just calling them, there's a reason he's just like burning that off that way. I think there's only like one character. I think Searching is a good kind of good time, like tight thriller kind of B sort of movie, but it's just really good at it, and we don't get a lot of these. Everything's kind of a bigger thing. This was kind of the best junky movie of the summer. It's like the one that you'll find disposable, you'd find on Netflix, like, oh yeah, they made another one, they're still making those. But this is like almost like gives the kind of genre and form, right after we had Unfriended 2, which was not good, kind of like new life to it, which is sort of interesting. It kind of makes you go, oh, there is like something to that. But it also makes me go like, all right, you've hit your peak, this is enough now. Let's stop with this gimmick. Although I think like you could use this gimmick in a movie, just don't make it your entire movie anymore. It does loosen up where it's not just like one computer, it's several computers, which I think is interesting. And you see the evolution of technology at the beginning, and you see, you know, things from his daughter's computer to his computer and so forth. This film really worked, and particularly John Cho. I think without them, the difference between this and Unfriended is Unfriended, like the acting was not really up to the par that this was, you know. If Unfriended had like acting as good as this, we'd still, you know, not be as critical. You know, I know like most of the people who watch this video hate Unfriended. That's fine. I was sort of like fine, whatever with it. But this is the film that I would hold up as like the best of this. Starts to lose you, but it's earned so much goodwill, you sort of just let it happen, and then at the end you're like, that was a little dumb, but like whatever, I had a good time. And that's kind of what Searching is. You know, it knows exactly what it wants to do most of the time. It gets what it's trying to do with a mystery like this, even if it loses it in the end. Its determination to get there and its kind of confidence in getting there, in its direction and its writing, and particularly with a really confident performance by people who it really feels like people who know what they're doing with one of these and understand like why they're doing certain things and how someone would use these things, and really thought about how people do these certain things and use technology, and you get a richer movie for it. Is this Gimmick like that cinematic or anything like that? Not really. I've only seen them in theaters, and I will say I didn't really think about it this time while I was watching this one, although I've always wanted to watch one of these on a laptop. I never have. That's something I would maybe do it again with this one. I wouldn't mind seeing this again, which is something I would never say for an Unfriended movie. I think if you are in the mood for something junky, something B, some like fun thrill ride that you don't really have to think that much about, but will be totally invested in while you're watching, then Searching is absolutely great at that. And it totally got me into it. It totally got me invested. It got me thinking about it just like a cheesy, stupid mystery documentary series that doesn't mean much, that you're just there to be like, this is what I like to do on a Friday night sort of thing. And that's what Searching is, and it's very excellent at it. And a lot of times we take that for granted and don't think of the real artistry that's at work when you're doing something like that. But I think Searching kind of makes you appreciate the artistry in doing something like that, and it shows the kind of peak of doing a gimmick like this and a peak of doing a thriller that you would otherwise underappreciate. Showing how flawlessly they're able to wrap you in and care about these characters and be as invested in the story is really what makes this film kind of the best of its gimmick, and makes it a little bit more than this stupid gimmick probably ever deserved. But it's bringing it to you anyway and getting you invested. Whether you thought this gimmick was dumb or not, it makes you actually think about how you would use your computer and how you would do those things. And I think that pushes this gimmick further than anyone ever thought it really would. And maybe this producer should be proud that he's pushed this as far as it does, but I think this is maybe as far as it really should ever go. So if you've seen Searching and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to.